Hi everyone, this is a video on tone in business writing. So we've all had to deal with tone before. So tone means attitude, right? Our attitude towards the reader, and of course, really important, the reader's understanding of our attitude. So we've certainly experienced that with our own text messages and emails in our own personal life, right? Sometimes people read a tone into a text that you didn't mean to put into it, right? That's why we have our emojis, and we're trying to always kind of explain what we're what our tone is, because of course when you're talking to somebody, you can use the tone of your voice and your face and your hands to show what your tone is. But when you're writing, it's much harder to get that across. So that's what we're going to talk about, ways that we can work with that. So 4 things we're going to talk about. The first is going to be formality. So how formal should our writing be? So this can go from very formal to very informal, or more likely most of the time somewhere in the middle. When it comes to Western business writing, we typically want to aim more in the middle. You don't want to be super formal unless you're doing some sort of legal thing, but you also don't want to be super casual, because that can kind of sound like you don't care or not as educated or something. Vocabulary is the best way to help with formality. So you want to pick words that are, certainly are precise and clear, but are also words that most people know. I always say, we don't want to say minuscule or teeny tiny. We want us to say small, right? So aim for that middle ground with your words most of the time. All right, next is going to be reader orientation. Reader orientation. So how reader oriented should your writing be? Most of the time, pretty reader oriented, right? We want to make the reader the star of our email or our letter or report, right? What is it that you need to know, and here's the information. Where that gets a little different is if you're delivering bad news or information that the reader doesn't want to hear. Then sometimes it's a little better to step back and make it not quite as reader oriented. So instead of saying you may lose money this year on the investments that we've made, better might be investors might see a decline in returns, right? Kind of pull back, focus more on just the group and just the kind of give it a little more formality, just to take away some of the sting of those negative that negative information that you're giving them. So again, most of the time we want it to be pretty reader oriented, but if it's a negative message, you might pull back. Next is going to be directness. So how direct should we be? In other words, do I say, hey, email me that thing, or do I have to give a little bit more information? So there's a couple questions you can ask yourself to figure that out. The first is, how much does your request impose on the reader? Sometimes it might not be any kind of imposition. It might just be, here's some information, and there's nothing that they really have to do. But other times we are going to be asking our readers to do something that they might want to do, or they might not want to do. And so the more you get into that, I'm going to ask you to do something that you may or may not want to do, we might need to kind of be less direct. We need to ask questions. Would it be possible for you to, that kind of thing. Polite, right? Please. I would appreciate. Those kinds of things really help if you are really trying to impose something. Other 2 questions would be, how well do you know the reader, and what's the power relationship? So again, if you really know the reader well, again, it's your coworker, you talk to them every day, you can be pretty direct. Boom, send me this thing. If somebody you don't know well, it's a client, you're not going to be quite so direct. And if the power relationship is that you are in charge, you can probably be a little more direct. If the power relationship is you're writing to a boss or a client, again, can't be quite as direct. All right, last one. So this is called, think of it as assuming, right? We always want to be careful the way if we assume. So be careful that you don't assume always that the reader either knows the information you're conveying, or that they agree with you on something that not everyone's going to agree on. It is clear that everyone always We want to avoid hyperbole. You want to avoid absolutes like that. Stick to it is likely, it's possible, it is words that are qualifiers, right? So again, possibly, maybe, it is, man, I keep going back to possible. Well, anyways, qualifier words that that just kind of help couch it so you're not saying like, yes, this is definitely it for sure. Okay, all right, we're getting over 5 minutes here, so I want to stop. I hope that helps when it comes to tone and figuring out what you need. Please read the document that I've posted from Purdue that talks about tone, and then we've got a quick exercise for you to do to practice. Thanks. See you soon.